Hi, everybody. Last year, I traveled to Los Angeles, New York, London, Berlin, Stockholm, Amsterdam. But please, don't think I'm bragging. I'm trying to impress you. We are living in the golden age of affordable flying. Because of the internet, we are only 3 clicks away from a new destination. Just ask yourself, how many times did you cross a border in the last 12 months? A lot, probably. When I visit a new city, I usually gloss over the touristy landmarks. This leads me to an uncomfortable situation that we probably all suffered. I feel caught between the reality of being a tourist and my desire to live like a local, to dive into the culture of the city and break free my tourist chains. Being a tourist is one of the worst social situations that exist today from my point of view. Going somewhere because I have the time and the money to, when the planet is literally burning, the climate is changing, the inequalities are growing, just to entertain myself, like in a fish tank, that makes me sick. Traveling is healthy and natural, tourism, not so much. Let me share with you what I find to be the best way to get out of this situation and embrace the local culture of a city. 2 words: dating application. You probably didn't think we'd get so intimate so quickly. Why dating application? Because everybody uses them. I'm not going to ask how many of you have used or use dating application. I could, no shame about it. Rich, poor, educated, uneducated, mainstream, fringe, young, less young. Everybody uses them. As long as your profile is open and your search criteria not too narrow, you can meet or at least be in contact with a large share of the population you are in. You get to speak with a local person who wakes up every morning in the city you're in to go to work, a person with no direct links to the travel business. You might be thinking that it's sad to use dating application when I could go in person in a bar and talk to people. And yes, you would be correct. But who is going to tell me which bar is the best in the neighborhood? Dating applications are a blessing, and not only to find a good restaurant or a hot date. They are today the best way to meet new people. People I'm still connected with somehow, people I work with, people who are just good memories, or people I love. But for the people who don't use dating application or don't want to use dating application, all this makes me wonder, why is it so complicated to feel connected with the city when it's so easy to travel there? What is the missing link between the accessibility and the affordability of the global travel and the feeling of being home in a new city, or at least not a tourist? This question haunted me for a few years. And one day, I had an epiphany. I remember exactly. I was in my shower and I got this idea. What if I started looking at the cities I love to explore, but from a different point of view? Like if all these big cities were districts in what is, in fact, only one big city across the world. After a few hours, days of research, I had evidence of the fact that the big cities of the world share the same socioeconomic issues. Housing density, political views, mobility, job market struggle, new family structure. It's probably as hard to find a decent place to live in New York as it is in London or Paris. The recent election showed that the people living in big cities vote in a distinct opposition with their countrymen. Trump election, Brexit, French election. Inevitably, people in the largest cities of the world feel more connected with the people in the other largest cities of the world than they do to their own fellow citizens. May I ask you a question? For the people amongst you who live in Paris or near Paris, do you feel that you have more in common with somebody living in London or Rouen? I grew up in Rouen. London, raise your hands. Thank you. Rouen? Not so much. Thank you. Cities are going down a road that makes them closer than ever. I call this the tectonic motion of cities. This motion that slowly but surely erasing the borders between big cities as to merge them together. It's globalization. Denying it is impossible. It's here. But it's not all bad. Globalization and culture do not have to be mutually exclusive. And I wanted to do something to prove it. The challenge is to use this motion to save the cultural diversity of big cities, and by extension, the cultural diversity of countries on this planet. Let's embrace this motion for once, but not in a financial purpose, but rather to showcase the cultural diversity of cities. If you think you are not concerned by this motion, I think some of you are not concerned. I invite you, maybe you don't feel concerned because you don't live in a big city, or, I don't know, your travels are limited to the borders of our beautiful country. We are lucky. I invite you to get more information about these initiatives in favor of the independence or cessation of the big cities in this planet from their home countries. It's called L'Independence in London. It's called Calexit in California. It's called Nexit in New York City. You can say, no, I don't believe it, but this is real. Some people in these cities want to define new frontiers for themselves. So, let's break the cliché about cities. Let's break the glass of the fish tank. But how do we get about breaking the glass of the fish tank when most of the sources of information are based on geographical position? New York Times. New York is in the title. Hi there, it's New York talking to the world in here. Le Parisien, Berliner Zeitung. I'm sure you have a lot of media outlets in mind with the location in the name. What if one media, a magazine, was linked with no specific cities, but all of them at the same time? This is why I call my magazine Here You Are, because what is really important is where you are. I don't want people to be able to tell where the magazine is from. The only place the magazine is from are the big cities of this world. I want Here You Are to be the first media to be entirely integrated into the large social islands, which are the big cities of this planet. The objective is to stress the particularism of each city. The features are editorials or guides to reveal something undercover, something which is most of the time under the radar for the non-city dweller, but something which is a real issue for the people living in the city. So let's release ourselves from the local anchors, these anchorings that limit most traditional outlets in their understanding of the other cities. Let me talk 1 minute about the people I work with on this project. Frédéric. Frédéric is a French-born of Asian descent. He studied in Berlin, he studied in Paris and now lives in Berlin. Julia. Julia lives in New York. She also lived in Paris. Her mother is American, but her father is a French-born with Greek Armenian roots from Egypt. Danilo is an Honduran-raised, Berlin-based art director. He lives with Camille, which is a Paris-born artist and writer. Alena decided to leave Berlin for New York. Connie lived in Stockholm and New York, and she's now back in Los Angeles, where she was born. I could go on and on and on about all my content producers, most of whom I met on dating application, for real. I want to make the people and their motion the art of my content production. It's not easy, but we are probably the first generation who is able to choose the best place for us to live and express ourselves. Maybe the first generation who does not consider countries overseas to be foreign. First generation who questions every day the limits of its country. A generation who questions every day the concept of home. Home is not 4 walls and a roof anymore. There is not only one home, there is home in different countries, in different cities. Home is where you get the Wi-Fi password. Home is when you keep one of your laptop chargers. The concept of home has changed, if not died altogether. Home is now an ecosystem which goes beyond the walls of a house, or the door of an apartment, or the fence of a yard. Home is where you eat. Home is who you go to the gym with. Home is when your phones get notified. If the frontiers are the limits of personal space and property, those have been definitely blown to bits by the explosion of home. Home is not anchored to a location anymore, so what would information be? Thank you.